The wagon rolled away, and 9-year-old Mercy Whitman understood with terrible clarity they weren't coming back. Her stepfather's final words still burned in her ears. "Can't feed dead weight to California." She stood there barefoot in the Texas dust, clutching 3 hardtack biscuits and a lie about neighbors who would never come. This wasn't abandonment by accident. This was murder by cowardice. And the little girl they left to die was about to discover something her family never knew: she was stronger than their cruelty. Before we begin, if you believe every child deserves to be chosen, please subscribe to this channel. Stay with me until the very end of Mercy's journey and comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far her story travels. Now, let's go back to that terrible morning when everything changed. The morning Thomas Brennan decided to kill his stepdaughter, the sky looked like it was holding its breath. Mercy had been awake since before dawn, making herself invisible. She'd packed the breakfast tin, rolled the blankets, checked the wagon axle, all the things that might make Thomas forget she existed. Her hands moved fast and silent. 10 years of life had taught her that quiet children survived longer. "Mercy, get over here." His voice cracked across camp. She didn't run. Running made things worse. "Yes, sir." Thomas stood by the wagon, arms crossed. Her mother sat on a rock 20 feet away, studying her own hands like they held answers. She wouldn't look up. That's when Mercy knew. "We're stopping today," Thomas said, his voice wearing that false, pleasant tone that preceded bad things. "There's folks up ahead, the Hendersons. They're taking you in." The words hit like cold water. "Taking me in, but it's decided. I can help. I don't eat much. I can't walk the whole way. I won't. I said it's decided." Thomas turned his back conversation over. Mercy's chest went tight. She looked at her mother. "Mama," Sarah lifted her head. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry, just empty. "It's for the best. What did I do wrong?" "Mercy, tell me what I did. I'll fix it." Thomas spun around. "You want truth, girl? You're slow. You're sickly. We got 3 months to California and every pound matters. The Hendersons got no children. They'll be glad for help." Lies tasted different than truth. This was lies. "I don't believe you." The words escaped before she could cage them. Thomas's face went dark. He stepped forward. Mercy stumbled back, but he didn't hit her. He smiled instead. Worse. "Doesn't matter what you believe. Get in the wagon." They rode for hours. Mercy wedged herself between a trunk and a cornmeal barrel, watching Texas blur past. Mesquite. Rock. Endless nothing under white sky. Emma would have been singing, pointing at clouds, making up stories. But Emma died 3 months back. Fever took her, and Mercy rode alone. She pulled the wooden bird from her pocket. Papa carved it before he died back when she was 6, before Mama married Thomas, before everything broke. The bird's wings were worry-worn smooth. "Papa," she whispered, "make me good enough." The wagon lurched, stopped. "Here we are." Mercy looked around. Nothing. Just a dry creek bed and a half-dead cottonwood. No house, no Hendersons, nobody. "I don't see—" "They're coming. Meeting you here." Thomas climbed down, already reaching for her bundle. "Said they'd be along before supper." Mercy's throat closed. She looked at her mother, who gripped the wagon seat so hard her knuckles went white. "Mama, please." Sarah closed her eyes. "Sarah, get her down," Thomas snapped. "I can't." Barely a whisper. "Then she can jump." Mercy didn't jump. She climbed down, legs shaking so bad she nearly fell. Thomas shoved her bundle at her lighter than it should be. "Wait here. Don't wander. The Hendersons know to look for you." He pulled 3 hardtack biscuits from his coat, wrapped in cloth. "Make them last." She took them, numb. "Thomas, we should," Sarah started. "We're 3 hours behind. We go. Now we make Thompson Creek by dark." He climbed up. Sarah sat, frozen, her face a war between shame and relief and something that might have been grief. Then she turned away. "Mama," the wagon moved. "Mama, please." Wheels creaked. Dust rose. "I'll be good, I promise." Her mother's shoulders shook, but she didn't turn, didn't stop, didn't save her daughter. "Mama." The wagon kept going and going until it was a speck, then nothing. Mercy stood watching empty road, waiting for them to realize their mistake. Parents didn't just leave children, not really, not forever, except they did. She sat under the cottonwood, bundle beside her, 3 biscuits in her lap. She didn't cry. Crying never helped. Crying made Thomas angry and Mama more distant. So she sat, waited, listened to silence. An hour crawled by, then 2. Sun baked her head, her lips cracked, throat filled with sand. "They're comin'," she told the wooden bird. "The Hendersons are comin'." Nobody came. By late afternoon, truth arrived. There were no Hendersons. Never had been. Thomas drove her to nowhere and left her to die, and Mama let him. The realization hit physical. She doubled over, gasping, shaken. They'd thrown her away like garbage. But she wasn't garbage. She wasn't nothing. Mercy stood on trembling legs. If nobody would save her, she'd save herself. The wagon went east. There was a settlement, Cedar something, 40 miles back. If she walked fast, if she was careful. She looked at her feet, shoes worn through, held together with twine, dress patched and too small, 3 biscuits, thin blanket, no water. 40 miles. "I can do it," she told the bird. She had to. Mercy started walking. Not east toward settlements too far, and Thomas might watch to ensure she didn't follow. North, instead, toward hills she'd seen from the wagon. Hills meant water. Water meant people. She walked until her feet bled through her shoes. Walked until sun sank and air cooled. Walked until she forgot why only knowing that stopping meant dying. By nightfall, maybe 6 miles. She found a dry wash with an overhang, crawled under, pulled her blanket close. Ate 1 biscuit, forcing herself to chew slow, make it last. Hardtack tasted like sawdust and abandonment. "Good night, Papa." She tucked the bird against her heart. Sleep wouldn't come. Every sound made her jump. Wind through dead grass. Distant coyotes, settling rocks. She was alone in the dark, 9 years old, and nobody cared if she lived or died, except she cared. Dawn came cold. Mercy's body screamed, lips split and bleeding, throat like broken glass. But she stood anyway, folded her blanket, started walking. North, always north. The second day was hell. Sun pressed down merciless. Sweat dried leaving salt that stung her eyes. She ate another biscuit at midday, but it stuck in her dry throat and she choked, coughing until she tasted copper. Water. She needed water desperately. By afternoon she stumbled more than walked. Vision blurred. Once she fell flat and lay there 5 minutes too exhausted to rise. But she did rise, because Emma gave up and Emma was dead, and Mercy refused to just lie down and quit. "1 foot," she whispered, then the other. She walked until sunset, walked until she couldn't see ground, walked until her foot caught and she went down hard, ankle twisting. Pain shot bright and sharp through her leg. That's when tears came. Not because it hurt, not from hunger or thirst or fear, but because she'd tried so hard and it wasn't enough, would never be enough. "I'm sorry, Papa," she sobbed into her hands. I really tried." The wooden bird pressed into her palm. She squeezed it, remembering her father's hands, remembering when someone loved her without conditions. "Make me good," she whispered. "Please." No answer. Just wind and dark and the crushing weight of being unwanted. Mercy crawled forward until she found boulders, a gap between two just big enough. She squeezed inside, pulled her blanket over her head, closed her eyes. Maybe trying was enough, even if it didn't save her. Maybe somebody somewhere would know she hadn't quit. Her last thought before fever took her, at least this was her choice. She'd chosen to fight. The third day she didn't wake. Not really. She drifted in and out, burning, then freezing. She saw Papa young and smiling, carving by firelight. Saw Emma chasing butterflies, laughing. Saw Mama's face hard and turned away. "I'm sorry I wasn't good enough." But even fever dreaming, she knew that was wrong. She'd always been good enough. They were the ones who failed. Above her, sun beat down. Birds circled. A lizard skittered across rock. The world kept turning indifferent to one small girl dying alone. Except Mercy Whitman wasn't alone. Not anymore. On the fourth day, someone found her. She felt it, first shadow across her face, then voices low and musical words she didn't understand. Cool water touched her lips. Gentle hands lifted her head. Her eyes fluttered open. A man knelt beside her. Young, maybe 20, with dark eyes and long black hair tied with leather. Buckskin clothes, a bow across his back, red ochre painted on one cheek, Comanche. Everyone knew the stories. Savages who stole children, scalped settlers, showed no mercy. But this man's eyes were kind. "Easy, little one." English heavily accented but clear. "You are safe." He tipped water to her lips. She drank gasping water spilling down her chin. Nothing ever tasted so good. "More," she croaked. "Slowly. Too much makes you sick." He let her drink again, just a little, then set the water skin aside. He studied her face, torn dress, bleeding feet. His expression darkened. "Who left you here?" Mercy tried to answer. The words wouldn't come. Her throat was too tight, eyes filling with tears. "Shh, no words now." He pulled a blanket from his pack, thick wool, not her threadbare rag, and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Can you ride?" She shook her head. "Then I carry you." He lifted her like she weighed nothing. Her head lolled against his shoulder. She should be scared. Should be fighting, screaming. But she was so tired and he was so warm, and for the first time in 4 days someone was helping her. Not demanding, not weighing her worth, just helping. "What is your name?" he asked, carrying her toward a waiting horse. "Mercy." "Mercy." He tested the word. "I am Swift Arrow. You are lucky I found you. 1 more day, maybe 2, and you would walk the spirit path." "I'm sorry." He stopped, looked down at her with those impossibly kind eyes. "Sorry for what? For being trouble." Something fierce crossed his face. When he spoke, his voice was stone. "You are not trouble, little one. You are a child. Whoever left you to die, they are the ones who should be sorry." The words hit different than any she'd heard before. Her own mother called her burden. Her stepfather weighed her like cargo and found her wanting. But this stranger, this savage, was the first person in years to call her what she really was. A child. Just a child. Something broke inside her chest. Or maybe something healed. She wasn't sure which. He settled her on his horse, swung up behind her. His arms came around steady and sure, holding her safe. "Where are you taking me?" Mercy asked. "Home. To my people." She closed her eyes. She should be afraid. Should be thinking escape getting back to her own kind. But all she felt was relief, because someone found her. Someone chose to save her. Maybe that meant she was worth saving after all. They rode as twilight bled across the sky. Mercy clutched her wooden bird and let herself believe just for a moment that the worst was over. Behind them, unseen in the gathering dark dust, rose on the horizon. A cavalry patrol tracking Swift Arrow's trail, and riding with them, pointing the way, was a man with cold eyes and colder heart, Thomas Brennan, who'd come back not to save his stepdaughter, but to make sure his crime stayed buried. The horse moved steady beneath them, and Mercy felt Swift Arrow's heartbeat against her back, strong, unhurried, alive. She'd stopped shivering somewhere in the last mile, the thick wool blanket and his body heat finally reaching her bones. The fever still burned behind her eyes, but the desperate dying feeling had loosened its grip. "How far?" she whispered. "Not far. Before the moon is high, you will have food and rest." Food. The word made her stomach clench. She couldn't remember the last time someone promised her food without conditions attached. Without Thomas counting every bite, without Mama's tight-lipped silence that said, "You're taken from others who deserve it more." Will they... She stopped, unsure how to ask. "Will they... what, little one? Will they mind that you brought me?" Swift Arrow was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something she couldn't quite name. Sadness, maybe. Or anger at a world that taught children to apologize for surviving. "Among my people, children are sacred. We do not ask if they deserve care. We give it because they are children. That is enough." Mercy turned those words over in her mind. That is enough. Not if you work hard enough, or if you're good enough, or if you don't cause trouble. Just enough. Just because. She didn't know what to do with that. The landscape changed as they rode. Rocks gave way to scattered grass, then to a valley where cottonwoods clustered near a stream. In the distance, Mercy saw firelight. Lots of it. And as they drew closer, she heard voices, children laughing, women singing, the low rumble of men talking. Her chest tightened. "That's your camp." "Yes." "There's so many." 40, maybe 50. Families travel together. Safer that way. He felt her tense. "You are safe, Mercy. I give you my word." She wanted to believe him, but Thomas's voice echoed in her head. "Savages, they'll scalp you soon as look at you. Do things that make the devil himself turn away." The horse picked its way down a gentle slope. People noticed them coming. A woman looked up from the fire, said something sharp. Others turned. Children stopped playing. Within seconds, a crowd gathered. Swift Arrow spoke in Comanche, his voice carrying authority despite his youth. Mercy caught her name in the flowing words, heard him gesture toward the hills they'd come from, watched faces change from suspicious to shocked to something that looked almost like anger. An older woman pushed through the crowd. She had gray streaking her long black hair and wore a dress decorated with intricate beadwork. Her face was lined, but her eyes were sharp as flint. She looked at Mercy, then at Swift Arrow, and unleashed a torrent of words that needed no translation. She was furious. Mercy shrank back against Swift Arrow's chest. She's angry. She doesn't want me here. No. Swift Arrow's voice held something that might have been amusement. She is angry at the people who left you. Bright Moon is our healer. She says anyone who abandons a child deserves to walk the earth as a ghost, never finding rest. The woman Bright Moon reached up. Mercy flinched, but the hands that touched her face were gentle. Bright Moon tilted Mercy's chin, examined her cracked lips, felt the fever burning in her forehead. She said something to Swift Arrow. She says you are very sick. She will care for you, but first you must drink. He translated as Bright Moon spoke again. She asks permission to treat you. Among our people we do not touch without asking even to heal. Mercy's throat ached. Nobody ever asked her permission for anything. Yes, please. Swift Arrow dismounted and lifted Mercy down. Her legs buckled. He caught her easily, but Bright Moon was already there, taking Mercy's weight with surprising strength for a woman who had to be 60. Come, little bird, Bright Moon said in careful English. You are safe now. She led Mercy toward a large teepee, painted with geometric patterns in red and yellow. Inside, it was warm and smelled like smoke and herbs and something almost sweet. Buffalo robes lined the floor. A small fire burned in the center smoke, curling up through the opening at the top. Bright Moon eased Mercy down onto a pile of soft furs. Mercy had never felt anything so comfortable in her life. The healer moved with practiced efficiency, retrieving a clay bowl of water, a leather pouch, strips of clean cloth. Drink, she commanded, holding the bowl to Mercy's lips. This water tasted different, bitter. Mercy almost spat it out. Drink, Bright Moon repeated firmer. Medicine, for fever. Mercy forced it down. Her stomach rebelled, but she kept it there through sheer will. She'd survived 4 days in the wilderness. She could survive bad-tasting medicine. Bright Moon nodded approval. Good. Strong spirit, this one. She began cleaning Mercy's feet with gentle efficiency. What is your name, little bird? Mercy. Mercy. Bright Moon tested at her accent, making it sound softer around her. I am Bright Moon. I am grandmother to many. Now I am grandmother to you. Yes. Something in Mercy's chest cracked wide open. Yes, she whispered. Good. Now we fix these feet, then food, then sleep. Tomorrow you tell me who left you to die. And we decide what to do. As Bright Moon worked, other women appeared. They brought food, something that looked like dried meat and berries, pounded together, thin cornmeal cakes, more water. They spoke softly to each other in Comanche, occasionally glancing at Mercy with expressions that ranged from pity to outrage. One woman, younger than the others, knelt beside Mercy. She had kind eyes and a baby strapped to her back in a cradle board. I am White Dove, she said in halting English. My son, she gestured to the baby. He is called Running Deer. You are welcome in our home. Thank you, Mercy managed. Who did this? White Dove asked. Who left small child alone? The question sat between them like a living thing. Mercy had spent 4 days not thinking about it, focused only on survival. But now, safe and warm and fed, the truth rose up and threatened to choke her. My stepfather and my mother. The words came out flat, dead. They said there was a family who'd take me in, but that was a lie. They wanted to get to California and I was slowing them down. White Dove's face hardened. She said something in Comanche that made the other women hiss and spit. Bright Moon's hand stilled on Mercy's feet. "This stepfather," Bright Moon said slowly, "he has your mother's other children." "No, my sister Emma died. It was just me." "Then why leave you?" Why not keep one child? Mercy had asked herself that same question 1,000 times. She'd never found an answer that didn't cut. Because I reminded her of my real father, maybe. Or because I wasn't pretty like Emma. Or because I got sick too much and cost too much to feed. Or because... Her voice cracked. Because I wasn't worth keeping. Bright Moon's hands cupped Mercy's face, forcing the girl to meet her eyes. "No, you listen to me, little bird. You are worth keeping. You are worth protecting. You are worth loving. The failing is not in you. The failing is in them." Mercy wanted to believe her, but 10 years of being told she was burden, she was trouble, she was too much or not enough had carved those beliefs into her bones. "I tried to be good," she whispered. "I tried so hard." "I know." Bright Moon pulled her close, and Mercy found herself crying into the old woman's shoulder. Great, gasping sobs that she'd held back for 4 days, for 4 years, maybe for her whole life. "I know you did, and you were good. You are good. The world was not good to you, but that changes now." Mercy cried until she had nothing left, until her throat was raw, and her eyes burned and exhaustion pulled at her like deep water. Bright Moon held her through all of it, rocking, slightly humming a song with no words. When the tears finally stopped, Bright Moon laid her down on the furs and covered her with a soft deerskin blanket. "Sleep now. Tomorrow is soon enough for decisions." "Will Swift Arrow..." Mercy struggled to keep her eyes open. "Will he get in trouble for bringing me trouble?" Bright Moon smiled. "No, little bird. He will be honored. To save a life is the greatest thing a warrior can do. Now sleep." Mercy's last thought before darkness took her was this: for the first time in years, she felt safe. She woke to voices arguing outside the teepee. The fever had broken sometime in the night. She felt wrung out, but clear-headed, her thoughts no longer fuzzy at the edges. Gray dawn light filtered through the teepee walls. The fire had burned down to embers. The voices rose in pitch. One was Swift Arrow. The other, deeper and harder, belonged to someone older. They weren't speaking English, but Mercy could hear the tension. She sat up slowly, her body one giant ache. Bright Moon appeared through the entrance carrying a clay pot. "Ah, you wake. Good. Fever is gone. You are strong to fight it so fast." "Who's arguing?" "Swift Arrow and his uncle Iron Bear, the war chief." Bright Moon knelt and stirred something in the pot, some kind of stew that smelled better than anything Mercy had ever encountered. "They argue about you." Mercy's stomach dropped. "Does he want me to leave?" "No. He wants to know why Swift Arrow risks bringing a white child to our camp. The soldiers, they use any excuse to attack. A missing white child is a very good excuse." "I'm not missing. I was left. We know this, but will the soldiers believe it?" Bright Moon ladled stew mandu into a wooden bowl. "Eat. You need strength." Mercy ate. The stew was rich with meat and some kind of root vegetable she didn't recognize. Her stomach cramped at first, too long empty, but she forced herself to go slow, and after a few minutes the cramping eased. The argument outside intensified. Swift Arrow's voice rose sharp and angry. Then footsteps and the tippy flap opened. The man who entered made Thomas look like a schoolboy. Iron Bear stood over 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered and muscled with gray, threading his long hair and scars mapping his arms and chest. His face was weathered dark by sun and wind, and his eyes were the coldest thing Mercy had ever seen. Those eyes fixed on her like a hawk spotting prey. Swift Arrow followed him, and his jaw tight with frustration. "Uncle, this is not—" Iron Bear held up one hand. Swift Arrow stopped mid-sentence. The war chief studied Mercy in silence. She forced herself not to look away, not to shrink back, even though everything in her screamed to make herself small and invisible. Finally, Iron Bear spoke. His English was better than Swift Arrow's barely accented. "You are the girl my nephew found dying." "Yes, sir." "You are 9 summers." "Yes, sir." "And your family left you to die because you were—" He glanced at Swift Arrow, who must have explained earlier. "Dead weight. These were the words used—" Mercy's throat closed. She nodded. Iron Bear crouched down, bringing himself to her eye level. Up close, she could see that the coldness in his eyes wasn't cruelty. It was control. Anger held on such a tight leash it looked like ice. "My nephew tells me you walked for 3 days, injured, no water, no food. Is this true?" "Yes, sir." "Why did you not stay where they left you?" The question caught her off guard. Because waiting meant dying. So I walked." "Where were you walking to?" "I don't know. North. I thought maybe there'd be water in the hills. Maybe people." "You did not know what direction led to safety, but you walked anyway." "Yes, sir." Iron Bear sat back on his heels. "You are very brave, or very stupid. I have not decided which." "Uncle," Swift Arrow started, "I have not finished." Iron Bear's voice could cut stone. He looked at Mercy again. "What I must know is this: if we send you back to your people, will you tell them we harmed you?" Mercy's breath caught. "No." "Will you tell them we stole you?" "No. You saved me." "Your people will not see it that way. They will see a white child in a Comanche camp and think the worst. This puts my people in danger. You understand?" She did. For the first time, she understood the risk Swift Arrow had taken. The risk they all took by letting her stay even one night. "I understand," she said quietly. "I can leave. I won't tell anyone where I've been. I'll say I found a settler family, or I'll make something up. I won't get you in trouble." Iron Bear tilted his head slightly. "You would lie to protect us, the people you have known only one night. You fed me. You healed me. You didn't leave me to die." Mercy's voice shook but held steady. "That's more than my own family did. So, yes, I'll lie. I'll do whatever keeps you safe." The silence stretched. Swift Arrow looked like he wanted to speak but didn't dare. Bright Moon stirred the pot, seemingly unconcerned, but Mercy caught the tension in her shoulders. Then Iron Bear did something Mercy didn't expect. He smiled. It transformed his face completely, the coldness melting into something almost warm. "You are brave, not stupid. I have decided." He stood towering over them all. "The girl stays until she is strong enough to travel. Then we will see." "Thank you," Mercy breathed. "Do not thank me yet. You will earn your place here. Everyone works, even children, even guests. You understand?" "Yes, sir." "Good." He turned to Bright Moon. "Teach her our ways. If she is to be here, she should not be helpless." Then, to Swift Arrow, "You found her. She is your responsibility. If there is trouble, it falls on you." Swift Arrow straightened something fierce and proud in his face. "I accept this." Iron Bear nodded once and left. The tension in the tepee evaporated like morning mist. Swift Arrow let out a long breath. "That went better than I feared." "Your uncle has a soft heart beneath all that growling," Bright Moon said, amused. "He sees himself in this girl. He too was left behind once long ago." "Really?" Mercy asked. "A story for another time. Now eat, then we begin lessons." The next days blurred together in a way that felt almost dreamlike. Mercy's body healed fast under Bright Moon's care. The cuts on her feet scabbed over, the sunburn faded, the hollow look left her face. But the healing went deeper than that. She learned to tan hides, scraping them clean until her arms ached. Learned which roots were good to eat and which would make you sick. Learned to start a fire with a bow drill, to track rabbits, to speak a handful of Comanche words that mostly meant hello and thank you and I'm hungry. The children accepted her faster than the adults. They taught her games, a complicated one with painted sticks that she never quite understood, and a simpler one that was basically tag but with more rules. They braided her hair, laughed when she mispronounced words, and generally treated her like she'd always been there. White Dove's son, Running Deer, became particularly attached. The baby would fuss until Mercy held him, then settle against her shoulder with contented little sounds. White Dove joked that Mercy had stolen her son's heart. "Maybe he knows you need it," White Dove said one afternoon as they worked on moccasins together. "Children see truth that adults miss." But not everyone was welcoming. Some of the older people watched Mercy with suspicion. A few refused to speak to her at all. She heard the word Tai Bo, a white person, hissed more than once, always with venom. Swift Arrow appeared beside her one evening as she helped gather firewood. "Ignore them. They have lost family to white soldiers. Their anger is not really for you." "But I'm still white. You are also a child, and you are under my protection." He picked up a particularly heavy log she'd been struggling with. "That means something here. Your uncle said I'm your responsibility, that if there's trouble, it's on you." "Yes." "That's a lot to risk for a stranger." Swift Arrow was quiet for a moment, adjusting the wood in his arms. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. "When I was 12 summers, I got separated from a hunting party. I wandered for 2 days lost. An old Mexican trader found me nearly dead from thirst. He shared his water, fed me, took me back to my people. He risked much Comanche, sometimes raid Mexican settlements, but he saw a child in need, and that was enough." He met her eyes. "I carry that debt. Now I pass it forward. This is the way." Mercy didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and kept gathering wood. A week passed, then 2. Mercy fell into the rhythm of camp life, waking with the sun, working through the day, sleeping deep and dreamless at night. She grew stronger, browner, more confident. Her hands developed calluses. Her Comanche vocabulary expanded beyond basic words, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. But peace never lasts forever. It was late afternoon, almost dusk, when the lookout's cry split the air. Mercy didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Danger. Everyone moved at once. Women grabbed children. Men reached for weapons. Swift Arrow appeared at Mercy's side, his face grim. "What's happening?" she asked. "Soldiers, coming from the east." Her blood turned to ice. "How many?" 20, maybe more. With a guide." The camp erupted into controlled chaos. Iron Bear shouted orders. Men mounted horses. Women began gathering the children into the center of camp where they'd be protected. Bright Moon grabbed Mercy's arm. "Come, quickly." "What are we?" "No time. Come." She pulled Mercy toward a tipi on the far edge of camp, shoved her inside, and began piling blankets and hides over her. "Stay here. Stay silent. No matter what you hear, do not come out. But promise me, I promise." Bright Moon disappeared. Mercy crouched under the blankets, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break her ribs. Through the gap in the teepee wall, she could see horses approaching. Blue uniforms. Army. And at the front of the column, pointing toward the camp, was a man with cold eyes and a colder heart. Thomas Brennan had come for her after all. Mercy's fingers dug into the buffalo hide, covering her every muscle locked tight. Through the thin gap in the teepee wall, she watched Thomas dismount with the practiced ease of a man who'd spent his life on horseback. He looked exactly the same, tall, lean, that perpetual scowl etched into his face like someone had carved it there. But something was different. He moved with purpose now, with authority he'd never had before. The officer beside him was younger, maybe 30, with a thick mustache and captain's bars on his shoulders. He surveyed the camp with sharp eyes, one hand resting on his pistol. "You're certain this is the band?" the captain asked. "Dead certain, Captain Morrison." Thomas's voice carried across the camp, confident and cruel. "Tracked them from where they took her. 3 weeks back, give or take." Mercy's breath caught. 3 weeks. He'd been hunting her for 3 weeks. Iron Bear stepped forward, flanked by Swift Arrow and a dozen warriors. He held no weapon, but everything about his posture screamed readiness. When he spoke, his English rang clear and cold. "You come to our camp with soldiers and guns. This is not the way of peace." Captain Morrison studied him. "You speak English well. I have had much practice speaking with white men who come to my home uninvited." A muscle twitched in the captain's jaw, but his voice stayed level. "We're looking for a missing child, a white girl 9 years old. Her family reported her taken by Comanche raiders 3 weeks ago near Thompson Creek. We have taken no children. Then you won't mind if we search your camp." The tension ratcheted up instantly. Warriors shifted hands, moving toward weapons. Women pulled children closer. Iron Bear's face could have been carved from granite. "You do not have permission to search our camp." "I don't need permission. I have orders." Morrison's hand tightened on his pistol. "Stand aside, or we'll move you aside." Thomas stepped forward, his face twisted with false worry. "Captain, please. My daughter's out here somewhere scared and alone. These savages—" "She is not his daughter," Swift Arrow said, his voice cutting through Thomas's words like a knife. "She is his stepdaughter, and she was not taken." Every head turned toward him. Morrison's eyes narrowed. "You know something about this girl?" Swift Arrow's jaw worked. Mercy could see the war happening behind his eyes, tell the truth and risk everything, or stay silent and let injustice win. Iron Bear shot him a warning look, but Swift Arrow had already made his choice. "I found a child 4 days ago, half dead from thirst and fever, abandoned near a dry creek bed. No supplies, no water, left to die." Thomas's face went red. "That's a damn lie. They raided our camp, killed, my wife took—" "Your wife is alive and well, in a wagon train headed to California." Swift Arrow continued, his voice sharp as broken glass. "I saw the tracks. I followed them east for miles before I found the girl. No signs of struggle. No signs of attack, just wagon tracks heading one way and small footprints heading another. Morrison held up a hand silencing Thomas's protests. You're saying this man abandoned his stepdaughter. I am saying I found a dying child where no child should be. I am saying her feet were bloody from walking. I am saying she had 3 old biscuits and nothing else. You decide what that means. The captain turned to Thomas, his expression unreadable. Mr. Brennan, he's lying to protect himself. They took her, I'm telling you. Then where are the signs of struggle? Where's the blood? Where's your wife's body if she was killed? Thomas's mouth opened and closed. They must have taken her too. You just said they killed her. I meant I was confused. It was traumatic. Let me see if I understand. Morrison's voice had gone dangerously quiet. You're telling me Comanche raiders attacked your camp, killed your wife, but left no body, took 1 child but not any of your supplies or horses, and you somehow managed to escape unharmed and with perfect memory of which direction they went. Sweat beaded on Thomas's forehead. It happened fast, or nothing happened at all. Morrison turned back to Iron Bear. If you have this child, I need to see her, to verify she's unharmed. Iron Bear's face remained impassive. And if we show you what, then you leave peacefully. If she's safe and unharmed, and if your story matches the warriors, then yes, we leave peacefully. You give your word as an officer. I give my word. Iron Bear studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. He turned and said something in Comanche. A ripple went through the camp. Women looked at each other. Children whispered. Bright Moon appeared from between 2 teepees, her face set in hard lines. She walked straight to Morrison, looked him dead in the eye, and spoke in careful English. The child is safe. She is healing, but she is afraid. You understand? Very afraid. You must promise no violence, no shouting, no sudden moves, or I do not bring her. Morrison nodded slowly. You have my word, ma'am. Bright Moon held his gaze a moment longer, then turned and walked toward Mercy's hiding place. Mercy's heart nearly stopped. This was it. The moment everything either fell apart or somehow impossibly held together. The tippy flap opened. Bright Moon knelt beside the pile of hides. Little bird, she whispered in Comanche, then switched to English. Time to come out. But remember, you are brave, you are strong, and you are not alone. Mercy pushed aside the hides and crawled out her legs, shaking so badly she could barely stand. Bright Moon steadied her, then took her hand and led her outside. The first thing Mercy saw was Thomas's face. The shock, the anger, the cold calculation behind his eyes as he figured out how to spin this. The second thing she saw was Swift Arrow standing tall and defiant beside his uncle. The third thing was Captain Morrison studying her with sharp attention to detail, the bruises fading on her arms, the healing cuts on her feet, the way she instinctively positioned Bright Moon between herself and Thomas. "Are you Mercy Whitman?" Morrison asked gently. Her voice came out small but steady. "Yes, sir." "Are you hurt?" "Not anymore. She gestured to Bright Moon and Swift Arrow. "They healed me." "Did these people harm you in any way?" "No, sir. They saved me." Thomas pushed forward. "Mercy, honey, it's okay now. You're safe. Come here." Mercy's hand tightened on Bright Moon's fingers. She didn't move. "Mercy," Thomas tried again, his voice honeyed with false concern. "Come to your father, sweetheart. We're going home." "You're not my father." The words came out harder than Mercy intended, but she didn't take them back. "And I'm not going anywhere with you." Thomas's mask slipped just for a second. His eyes went cold and flat. "Now you listen to me, girl." "No." Mercy stepped forward out from behind Bright Moon. Her whole body shook, but her voice carried clear. "You listen to me. You left me by that creek to die. You said the Hendersons would take me in, but that was a lie. You gave me 3 biscuits and rode away, and you didn't come back. That's not we were coming back, we just had to. You drove east for 3 hours. Swift Arrow tracked you. You never turned around. Not once." Morrison's expression had gone very still. "Is this true, Mr. Brennan?" "She's confused, Captain. She was delirious, half dead when they found her. She doesn't remember. I remember everything." Mercy's voice gained strength with every word. "I remember Mama couldn't look at me. I remember you said I was dead weight. I remember waiting under that tree for hours thinking maybe you'd made a mistake. But you didn't. You left me there on purpose." "You ungrateful little—" Thomas caught himself, forced his face back into concerned lines. "Captain, she's clearly been influenced by these savages. They've turned her against her own family." "Stop calling them that." Mercy's hands clenched into fists. "They're not savages. Savages are people who leave children to die in the desert. Savages are people who lie about it after. These people fed me, healed me, treated me like I mattered. That's more than you ever did." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the soldiers looked uncomfortable. Morrison stared at Thomas with barely concealed disgust. "Mr. Brennan, I'm going to need you to explain something to me. If you were coming back for your daughter, why didn't you? Why continue east? We had to catch up with the wagon train, get help. The nearest settlement is 40 miles west of where you claim you left her. You went east, away from help." Thomas's face flushed. "I told you we needed— You needed to get rid of an inconvenient child before starting fresh in California." Morrison's voice could have frozen fire. "That about right? How dare you? How dare I?" Morrison took a step forward. Thomas actually backed up. "I've seen a lot of ugliness on this frontier, Mr. Brennan. Men who shoot children for sport. Men who poison wells, men who do things that keep me up at night. But I've never seen a man try to murder his own child and then blame it on innocent people to cover his tracks. She's not my child. She's my wife's mistake from before." The words hung in the air like poison. Thomas seemed to realize what he'd said, tried to backtrack, but it was too late. Morrison turned to Iron Bear. "Do you want to press charges for slander, wrongful accusation, any of it?" Iron Bear shook his head slowly. "I want only peace. Let the white man's law deal with the white man's crimes." "Fair enough." Morrison turned to his sergeant. "Arrest Mr. Brennan." Thomas's eyes went wide. "What you can't. For child abandonment, filing a false report, and wasting military resources. That's just a start." Morrison nodded to 2 soldiers. "Take him." Thomas tried to run. He actually tried to run. He made it maybe 10 feet before 2 soldiers tackled him. They dragged him to his feet, his face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this, all of you. That girl is mine. By law, you hear me, mine, and these savages—" Morrison stepped close, his voice dropping to something that made even Mercy shiver. "If I hear one more word out of your mouth, I'll add threatening an officer to your charges. Do you understand me?" Thomas's mouth snapped shut. The soldiers hauled him toward the horses. Morrison turned back to Mercy. His face softened slightly. "Miss Whitman, you're safe now. We'll take you." He paused. "Where exactly should we take you?" The question hung there. Where did she belong? Her mother was still with the wagon train heading to California. Thomas would be in custody. She had no other family that she knew of. "I want to stay here," Mercy said quietly. Morrison blinked. "Here with the Comanche. They're my family now, more than the Whitmans ever were. Miss Whitman, I understand you're grateful, but this isn't you. You're a white child. You belong with your own people." "Why?" The question came out sharper than Mercy intended. "Because we have the same color skin that didn't make them family, that didn't make them kind. These people," she gestured to the camp around her, "they chose me. Nobody's ever chosen me before." Morrison looked genuinely troubled. "It's not that simple. There are laws, procedures. There are also laws against abandoning children," Swift Arrow interjected. "Yet this man was free to do so until you caught him in his lies. That's different. Is it? Or is it only different because he is white and we are not?" Morrison's jaw worked. He looked from Swift Arrow to Mercy to Iron Bear, clearly wrestling with something. Finally, he sighed. "I need to speak with my commanding officer about this. In the meantime, Miss Whitman, you'll need to come with us. We'll find a suitable family." "No." Mercy's voice was small but absolute. "I won't go." "Miss Whitman, you gave your word you'd leave peacefully if I was safe. I'm safe, so leave. It's not that simple. You're a minor. You need legal guardians. Then I'll stay until you sort it out, but I'm not leaving this camp." Morrison looked ready to argue, but Iron Bear stepped forward. "The child has been through much trauma. Forcing her to leave those who have shown her kindness, this would cause more harm, yes?" "Probably," Morrison admitted. "Then leave her here while you do your procedures. We will protect her. This is not a promise, it is an oath. No harm will come to this child while she is under our care." Morrison studied Iron Bear for a long moment. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him because he nodded slowly. 2 weeks. I'll need that long to contact my superiors and figure out the legal situation. Can you keep her safe that long?" "She has been safe with us for 3 weeks already." "2 more changes? Nothing." "Fair point." Morrison turned to Mercy. "Miss Whitman, I'll be back in 2 weeks. At that time, we'll have figured out a permanent solution. In the meantime, you'll stay here. But understand this is temporary. You can't live with the Comanche forever." "Why not?" Mercy asked. Morrison didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe he did, but knew better than to say it out loud. He settled for, "We'll discuss it when I return." He mounted his horse, gestured to his men. They began gathering their gear, preparing to leave. Thomas, hands bound, was hoisted onto a horse. He glared at Mercy with pure hatred. "This isn't over, girl. You hear me? This isn't over." Morrison wheeled his horse around. "It is for you, Mr. Brennan. Very much over." They rode out, dust rising behind them. Mercy watched until they disappeared over the horizon, her heart still hammering. She'd done it. She'd told the truth, and somehow, impossibly, she'd been believed. The camp exhaled collectively. Women began talking, men lowered weapons, children started playing again. The tension that had gripped everyone dissolved like morning mist. Bright moon pulled Mercy close. "You were very brave, little bird." "I was terrified." "Brave and terrified are the same thing. Brave is just doing it anyway." She kissed the top of Mercy's head. "Come, you must eat. All this excitement on an empty stomach is not good." But before they could move, Iron Bear approached. He looked at Mercy for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he placed one hand on her shoulder. "You spoke truth when lies would have been easier. You protected my people when you could have protected yourself. This takes courage." He squeezed gently. "You are welcome in this camp, Mercy Whitman. Not as a guest, as one of us." Something in Mercy's chest expanded so fast it hurt. "Thank you." "No, thank you." He looked at Swift Arrow. "You chose well, nephew. She has a warrior's heart." Swift Arrow smiled, something proud and fierce in his face. "I know." Iron Bear turned and walked away, already calling orders to post scouts, increase patrols, prepare for the possibility that Morrison might not keep his word. The camp buzzed back to life around them. White Dove appeared with running deer on her back. "You should have seen Thomas Brennan's face when you called him out. I thought he would explode. I thought he was going to hit me. He would not have gotten close. Every warrior in camp was ready to stop him." White Dove shifted the baby. "You have many protectors now, Mercy, more than you know." Over the next few days, something shifted in how the camp treated Mercy. The people who'd been suspicious before the ones who'd called her T-Bow with venom began to thaw. Old women nodded to her. Men included her in their conversations. Children sought her out to play. She'd proven herself. Not by being perfect, not by working harder than everyone else, but by standing up when it mattered. By choosing them when she could have chosen safety. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Mercy sat with Swift Arrow on a hill overlooking the camp. Below, fires sparked to life. Smoke rose in lazy spirals. Someone was singing their voice, carrying on the wind. "Are you afraid?" Swift Arrow asked. "Of what happens in 2 weeks. Terrified," Mercy admitted. "What if they make me leave? What if they send me to some other family that doesn't want me? Then you come back. Just like that, just like that. You are one of us now. That does not change because soldiers say so." He picked up a small stone, turned it over in his hands. "When I was young, my father told me something. He said, home is not a place. Home is the people who fight for you even when it costs them. The people who see you and choose you anyway. Your people chose me. Yeah, but first you chose us. You could have lied to protect yourself. You chose truth instead. That matters." They sat in comfortable silence watching night fall over the camp. Mercy pulled out her wooden bird, ran her thumb over its smooth wings. She'd carried it across half of Texas through fever and thirst and near death. It had been her last connection to a father who loved her to a time before everything went wrong. But maybe it was more than that. Maybe it was proof that love existed. That once someone had carved this for a little girl and put everything they felt into the wood. That love was real even when the person who gave it was gone. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for finding me, for saving me. You saved yourself, little one. You walked for 3 days when you should have died in 1. You survived because you refused to quit." Swift Arrow stood offered his hand. "That is not something I gave you. That is something you already had." Mercy took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. They walked back down the hill together toward firelight and voices and the smell of cooking food, toward a place that, for now at least, was home. 2 weeks passed faster than Mercy wanted. She learned to shoot a bow, though her arms were too weak to pull it properly. She learned to gut a rabbit without flinching. She learned a dozen more Comanche words and forgot the English ones for things she no longer needed. She learned that running deer liked to be bounced when he cried, that bright moon sang when she cooked, that swift arrow was teaching her tracking not just because it was useful, but because he believed she could learn anything. She learned what it felt like to be chosen. On the 14th day, scouts brought word soldiers approaching. Captain Morrison has promised returning. The camp prepared differently this time. No weapons raised, no warriors in formation. Just people going about their lives showing they had nothing to hide. Morrison rode in with only 5 men, his face serious but not hostile. He dismounted, nodded to Iron Bear, then looked at Mercy. I spoke with my superiors. I spoke with lawyers. I spoke with the territorial governor. He paused. It's complicated. Mercy's heart sank. You're making me leave. I'm giving you a choice. Morrison pulled a folded paper from his coat. There's a family in Cedar Springs, the Hendersons, ironically. They're willing to take you and no questions asked. Good people. A real home. And the other choice? Morrison looked uncomfortable. There isn't really another choice. Not legally. You're a minor. You need white guardians. Why? Mercy demanded. Why does it have to be white guardians? Why can't I stay here? Because the law says... The law let Thomas abandon me. The law didn't care when I was dying, so forgive me if I don't trust what the law says. Morrison winced. I know it's not fair. But, Mercy, think about your future. Education opportunities being accepted in society. I don't care about society. Society didn't save me. Miss Whitman, her name is Little Bird. Bright Moon stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. She chose this name 3 days ago. She is one of us now. Morrison's face creased with genuine pain. Ma'am, I understand what you've done for her, and I'm grateful, but I have orders. I have laws I'm bound to follow, and those laws say white children belong with white families. Even when the white family tried to kill her, Swift Arrow asked quietly, Thomas Brennan will face justice. Your mother is being located as we speak. But Mercy needs stability, a permanent home. Not... He gestured around, clearly struggling, not a camp that moves with the seasons. This is my home, Mercy said. Morrison crouched down to her level. I know it feels that way now, but think about 10 years from now. 20. You'll be a young woman. Where will you belong then? Not here, not really, and not in white society if you stay here too long. You'll be caught between 2 worlds belonging to neither. The words hit harder than Mercy wanted to admit, because part of her knew he was right. Part of her knew this couldn't last forever, no matter how much she wanted it to. How long do I have? She asked quietly. I'm supposed to take you today. Give me tonight. Please, let me say goodbye properly. Morrison studied her face, then nodded slowly. Tonight. But tomorrow morning, we leave for Cedar Springs. He turned and walked away, his men following. Mercy stood frozen, feeling like the ground had opened beneath her feet. Bright Moon pulled her close. Come, little bird. We have much to do before morning. That night, the camp held a feast. Not a celebration, everyone knew what morning would bring, but a goodbye, a recognition, an honoring of a girl who'd walked into their lives half dead and carved out a place in their hearts. They gave her gifts, a pair of moccasins perfectly fitted, a medicine pouch from Bright Moon, a small knife from Iron Bear, its handle carved with symbols she couldn't read but somehow understood meant protection. Swift Arrow gave her a feather hawk, he said, for seeing truth when others see only lies, for courage in the face of fear. White Dove gave her a tiny pair of moccasins, child-sized, for running deer's sister. When she comes, I will tell her about you, about the girl who chose us. One by one, people came forward, offered words, gifts, embraces. Children cried. Women wept quietly. Even the men who'd been suspicious at first gripped her shoulder, said words in Comanche she felt more than understood. When it was over, when the fire burned low and people drifted to their teepees, Mercy sat with Bright Moon under the stars. I don't want to go, she whispered. I know. I just stay, run away or hide or... And then what, soldiers come back with more men. People get hurt, maybe killed, all because one girl refuses to follow their laws. Bright Moon stroked her hair. You are brave, little bird, but sometimes bravery means doing the hard thing, not the easy thing. There's nothing easy about leaving. No, but there is something right about it. You go, you learn their ways, you grow strong. And one day when you are grown, you choose for yourself. No one can stop you then. Mercy leaned against Bright Moon's shoulder, breathing in the smell of sage and smoke and something indefinably safe. Will you forget me? Forget you? Bright Moon laughed softly. Little bird, you have changed this camp. You have shown us that not all white people are the same, that some are worth saving, worth loving. We will tell your story for generations. The girl who chose us, the girl we chose. I wish I could take you with me. You do, right here. Bright Moon pressed a hand over Mercy's heart. We are always with you, and you with us. They sat together until the stars began to fade, until gray light touched the eastern horizon, until there was no more time left. Morning came too fast. Morrison's men were already mounted, waiting respectfully at the edge of camp. Mercy stood in the center, her small bundle of belongings clutched tight, surrounded by the people who'd become her family. She hugged each person goodbye. Bright Moon, White Dove, running deer who cried like he understood, children she'd played with, warriors who'd protected her, every single person who'd made her feel for 3 beautiful weeks like she mattered. Swift Arrow was last. He knelt so they were eye level. Little bird, he said, his voice rough, you fly from here, but you do not fly alone. You carry us, and we carry you, always. I don't know how to do this. One day at a time, one foot then the other. Just like you did in the desert. He pressed something into her hand, a small carved bird, perfect twin to her father's. So you remember, you are never alone. Mercy threw her arms around his neck and cried. Cried like she hadn't let herself cry since that first night when Bright Moon held her. Cried for everything she'd lost and everything she was losing again. I'll come back, she promised. When I'm grown, I'll come back. I know you will. Morrison approached gently. Miss Whitman, it's time. Mercy pulled away from Swift Arrow, wiped her eyes, and walked toward the waiting horses. She didn't look back. Couldn't. If she looked back, she'd never leave. Morrison lifted her onto a horse, climbed up behind her. The soldiers formed up around them. Move out, Morrison ordered quietly. The horse started walking, and Mercy did look back, then couldn't help it. The camp grew smaller behind them. She could see Bright Moon standing tall, one hand raised in farewell, could see Swift Arrow still kneeling where she'd left him, could see the people who'd chosen her watching her go. She clutched both wooden birds in her hand and whispered a promise to the wind. "I'll come back. I swear it. I'll come back." And somewhere behind her, though she couldn't hear it over the sound of hoofbeats, the camp began to sing. The Henderson house appeared on the horizon just before noon, a solid wooden structure with glass windows and a stone chimney bigger than any building Mercy had seen in months. Smoke curled from that chimney, and chickens scratched in a fenced yard beside a vegetable garden laid out in neat, purposeful rows. Everything about it screamed permanent civilization order. Everything about it felt wrong. Captain Morrison must have sensed her tension because his hand tightened slightly on the reins. "They're good people, Mercy. I promise you that. That's what Thomas said about the Hendersons before he left me to die." Morrison winced. "These are the real Hendersons, James and Ruth. Been here 15 years. They wanted children but couldn't have any. When I told them about you, Ruth cried. Happy tears, I mean." Mercy said nothing. She clutched both wooden birds in her pocket so tightly the edges cut into her palm. The door opened before they reached the porch. A woman emerged, maybe 40, with gray and blonde hair pulled back in a bun and flour dust in her apron. Her face was round and kind, with smile lines around her eyes and mouth. Behind her came a man tall and broad-shouldered with a beard going silver and hands that looked like they'd worked hard for every day of those 15 years. Morrison dismounted and helped Mercy down. Her legs felt like water. "Captain," the man said, extending his hand. "James Henderson. This must be the girl." "Mercy Whitman, yes, sir." Ruth Henderson stepped forward and Mercy instinctively backed up. Ruth stopped immediately, her face creasing with concern. "Oh, sweetheart, it's all right. You're safe here. I promise you're safe." "That's what everyone says." The words came out harsher than Mercy intended, but Ruth didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly like Mercy had said something wise instead of rude. "You're right. Words are easy. Trust has to be earned." She straightened a brushed flower from her hands. "How about this? You come inside, have something to eat, and you can decide for yourself if you want to stay. If you don't, we'll figure something else out. Fair?" Mercy studied her face, looking for the lie, the crack in the facade. But all she saw was patience, and something that looked almost like understanding. "Fair," she said finally. Inside, the house smelled like bread and coffee and something sweet baked in the oven. The main room had a fireplace, a wooden table with 6 chairs, curtains on the windows. Everything was clean, but lived and loved, but not fussy. A rocking chair sat by the fire with knitting abandoned in the seat. Ruth pulled out a chair. "Sit, honey, you must be exhausted." Mercy sat stiffly watching everyone's hands tracking their movements. Morrison took the chair across from her. James leaned against the door frame. Ruth busied herself at the stove. "I'll leave her things with you," Morrison said quietly. "There's not much, just what the Comanche gave her and what she came with." "That's fine." James's voice was deep but gentle. "Material things we got. What she needs is time." Morrison pulled papers from his coat. "I'll need you to sign these. Legal guardianship papers. Nothing permanent, just until we can locate her mother or find family willing to take her." "What about Thomas Brennan?" James asked. "In custody in Fort Worth. He'll stand trial next month for child abandonment. If convicted, he's looking at 5 years minimum." Good. The word came out hard. James caught himself. Sorry, not very Christian of me. But a man who'd do that to a child? No apology needed. I feel the same. Morrison slid the papers across the table. Sign here and here. While James signed, Ruth brought food, fresh bread, still warm from the oven butter, jam, cold chicken, and a glass of milk. She set it in front of Mercy without comment, then moved away, giving her space. Mercy stared at the food. Her stomach growled, but her throat felt too tight to swallow. You don't have to eat if you're not ready, Ruth said softly, but it's there when you want it. Morrison finished his business, stood, and put his hat back on. He looked at Mercy with something like regret. Miss Whitman, I know this isn't what you wanted, but give it a chance, please. Do I have a choice? No, he admitted. But you have my word if this doesn't work, if they're not good to you, you send word and I'll come back, personally. Mercy didn't answer. Morrison sighed, nodded to the Hendersons, and left. The sound of his horse fading away felt like the last door closing on a cell. Silence settled over the kitchen. James finished his coffee. Ruth washed dishes. Nobody pushed Mercy to talk or eat or do anything at all. Finally, James spoke. We heard what happened to you, what Thomas Brennan did, and what the Comanche did after. I want you to know we don't blame you for not trusting us. You got every reason to be cautious. More than cautious, Ruth added. Downright suspicious. Smart even. Mercy looked up surprised. James continued. So, here's what we're thinking. You stay here as long as you need. Could be a week, could be forever. Up to you. You want to leave, you tell us, and we'll help you go wherever you want. Within reason, he added quickly. Can't send you back to the Comanche, law won't allow it, but anywhere else we'll make it happen. Why? Mercy asked. Why would you do that? Ruth and James exchanged a look, some wordless conversation passing between them. Ruth sat down at the table, her hands folded. About 12 years ago, I had a baby, she said quietly. A little girl. She lived 3 days. We tried again the next year. That baby died before it was born. And again the year after that. Her voice stayed steady, but her eyes shone. We wanted children so badly it hurt, but God had other plans. We grieved, James picked up the story, for years. Then one day, Ruth said something that changed how I looked at everything. She said maybe God didn't want us to have children. Maybe God wanted us to be there for children who already existed but had nowhere else to go. So, we've been waiting, Ruth said, for the right child, the one who needed us as much as we needed her. She looked at Mercy. Maybe that's you. Maybe it's not. But either way, you're not a burden. You're not charity. You're a child who deserves a safe place to land. That's all. Mercy's chest ached. She wanted to believe them so badly it scared her. But believing meant risking. And risking meant getting hurt again. I won't call you Mama and Pa, she said, testing. Don't want you to, James replied, easily. Not until you're ready. Maybe not ever. We answer to James and Ruth just fine. I won't go to church if I don't want to. Church is on Sundays at 10. We go every week. You're welcome to join or stay home. Your choice. Ruth paused. Though fair warning, if you stay home, you'll be expected to do your share of chores. Going to church gets you out of chicken duty. Despite everything, Mercy almost smiled. I like chickens. Then we'll get along just fine. The bread was still warm. Mercy picked up a piece, spread butter on it, and took a small bite. It tasted like everything she'd missed without knowing she missed its safety, home, the simple comfort of someone caring enough to bake bread. She ate slowly while Ruth and James went about their day talking to each other about ordinary things. The fence that needed mending, the neighbor's cow that kept getting loose, whether to plant corn or beans in the back 40 this year. Normal conversation, normal life. It felt alien and comforting all at once. That first night, Ruth showed Mercy to a small room off the kitchen. It had a real bed with a quilt, a dresser, a window that looked out toward the hills. Clean, simple, more than Mercy had ever had. "This was supposed to be the nursery," Ruth said quietly, "but it'll do just fine as your room if you want it. For how long? As long as you need." Mercy set her bundle on the bed, the moccasins from the Comanche, the medicine pouch from Bright Moon, the knife from Iron Bear, the feather from Swift Arrow, and both wooden birds nestled together like they belonged. Ruth saw them and understood without being told. "You can keep anything you want out. We won't touch your things. This is your space." "Thank you." "You're welcome, sweetheart." Ruth hesitated at the door. "If you need anything in the night, bad dreams, or just can't sleep, our room is right there. You can knock any time. We won't mind." After she left, Mercy lay in the bed and stared at the ceiling. The mattress was soft. The quilt was warm. The room was quiet except for the distant sound of James and Ruth talking in low voices and the occasional creak of the house settling. She should have felt safe, should have felt grateful, but all she felt was lost. She pulled out the wooden bird Swift Arrow had carved and held it up to the moonlight streaming through the window. It was perfect, every feather detailed, the beak sharp, the eyes knowing. He'd made this for her, because he believed she'd need it. "I miss you," she whispered to it, to all of them. "I miss you so much." The bird had no answers, but holding it helped anyway. The days that followed developed a rhythm. Mercy woke early habit from the Comanche camp and found James already up making coffee. They'd sit together in comfortable silence while the sun rose. Then Ruth would emerge and breakfast would happen without fuss or fanfare. Mercy did chores, fed chickens, gathered eggs, helped with laundry and cooking and cleaning. Nobody demanded it, but she offered because not working felt like being a burden. And if she was going to be here, she needed to earn her keep. Ruth tried to stop her the third morning. "Mercy, honey, you don't have to work so hard. You're not a servant." "I know, but I want to help." "Why?" The question stopped Mercy cold. Because I need to be useful. So you'll want to keep me." Ruth set down the dish she was washing and turned to face Mercy fully. "Sweetheart, listen to me. We want you here because you're you, not because you can gather eggs or wash dishes. If you never did another chore in your life, we'd still want you here. Do you understand?" Mercy didn't. She understood work equaled value, understood being useful, meaning being tolerated, but being wanted just for existing. That was foreign language. "I don't know how to do that," she admitted. "Do what? Just be, without earning it." Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, honey, that breaks my heart. But we'll teach you. It'll take time, but we'll teach you." Over the following weeks, the Hendersons proved patient beyond anything Mercy had experienced. When she flinched at sudden movements, they moved slower. When she hoarded food in her room, they didn't comment. Just quietly made sure there was always plenty. When she woke, screaming from nightmares about being left in the desert, Ruth came and sat with her until dawn without asking questions. They gave her space when she needed it and company when she didn't. They never pushed, never demanded, never made her feel like love came with conditions. It terrified her. Because the more she let herself believe it was real, the more it would hurt when it was taken away. And everything always got taken away eventually. 3 weeks and a letter arrived. James read it at breakfast, his face grave. "It's from Captain Morrison," he said. "They found your mother." Mercy's fork clattered to her plate. "Where?" "California. The wagon train made it through." He paused. "She's refusing to come back." The words hit like a physical blow. Refusing. Her own mother was refusing. "Did she?" Mercy's voice cracked. "Did she say anything about me?" James looked at Ruth, then back at Mercy. "She said she's starting fresh. That Thomas is in jail and she can't come back now even if she wanted to. And that—" He stopped, clearly wrestling with whether to continue. "Tell me." "She said you'd be better off with someone else, that she was never good at being a mother." At least she was honest. Mercy had to give her that. Sarah Brennan had never wanted her daughter, and now she was finally admitting it. "So that's it then," Mercy said, her voice flat. "I'm officially an orphan." "No." Ruth reached across the table and took Mercy's hand. "You're officially ours, if you'll have us." "You don't have to say that. We're not saying it because we have to. We're saying it because it's true. We want you, Mercy. We want to adopt you legally, make you a Henderson for real, if that's something you'd want." Mercy pulled her hand back, stood up abruptly. "I need some air." She fled outside before they could respond, before the tears could come, before she had to face what they were offering. She walked fast toward the hills, toward the direction where the Comanche camp had been, even though she knew they'd moved on by now, following the buffalo like they always did. She found a large rock and sat pulling her knees to her chest. The wooden birds came out of her pocket, one from her real father, one from Swift Arrow. 2 different men, 2 different worlds, both trying to tell her the same thing: you are worth loving. But if that was true, why did people keep leaving? "Mind if I sit?" Mercy jumped. James stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable but determined. "It's your land." "That's not an answer." She shrugged. James took it as permission and lowered himself onto a nearby rock with a grunt. "Getting old," he muttered. "Everything creaks." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm not going to tell you everything will be okay. You've heard enough lies, but I will tell you this. Ruth and I, we're not going anywhere. Not unless you want us to." Everyone says that, then they leave anyway. Not everyone. Swift Arrow didn't leave. He had to let you go because soldiers made him, but he didn't want to. Bright Moon didn't want to. That whole camp didn't want to. James picked up a pebble, turned it over in his large hands. Your real father didn't leave by choice either. He died, which is different than abandoning. My mother left. Yes, she did, and that's her failure, not yours. But Mercy... He waited until she looked at him. Not everyone is your mother. Some people stay. Some people fight to stay. Ruth and I were the fighting to stay kind. You don't know that. You've only known me 3 weeks. True, but we knew in 3 days. Some things you just know. He stood, brushed off his pants. We're not asking you to decide right now. Take all the time you need. But know this, when you're ready, we'll be ready. And if you're never ready, we'll still be here. That's what family does. He walked back toward the house, leaving Mercy alone with her thoughts and her birds and the ache in her chest that felt like it might split her open. That night she dreamed of the creek bed where Thomas left her, But this time when she called for her mother, it wasn't Sarah who came. It was Ruth, and Swift Arrow, and Bright Moon, and her real father, young and smiling, and they all said the same thing in perfect unison. "You're not alone. You never were." She woke with tears on her face and a clarity she hadn't felt in years. At breakfast, she said, "I want to learn to read." Ruth looked up from her eggs, surprised. "You can't read? Mama said there was no point. Girls don't need reading." "That's nonsense." Ruth's voice was sharp. "Everyone needs reading. It's the door to everything else. We'll start today." And they did. Every afternoon, after chores, Ruth sat with Mercy at the kitchen table with a worn Bible and a slate board. They started with letters, then simple words, then sentences. It was hard, frustrating. Mercy wanted to quit a dozen times, but Ruth never lost patience. "Again," she'd say gently, "you almost have it. Try again." And Mercy would try, because for the first time, someone believed she could learn, believed she was smart enough, worthy enough, capable enough. James taught her other things: how to mend a fence, how to read weather in the clouds, how to gentle a nervous horse, how to shoot. "Every person on the frontier needs to know how to protect themselves," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. They never tried to make her forget the Comanche, never spoke badly of them or suggested she should be ashamed of her time there. When Mercy wore her moccasins around the house, Ruth just smiled. When she tied the hawk feather in her hair, James complimented it. "You're allowed to love both places," Ruth said one evening as they shelled peas together. "Love isn't a limited resource. You can love them and love us. There's room for all of it." "It feels wrong, like I'm betraying someone no matter what I do." "That's because you're trying to choose. Stop choosing. Just love who you love and be who you are. The rest will sort itself." Sunday came, and with it, church. Mercy had been dreading it, the stares, the whispers, everyone knowing she was the girl the Comanche had. But the Hendersons walked in with her between them, their hands on her shoulders, their message clear. "This is our daughter, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with us." Most people were kind, a few were curious. One woman, Mrs. Patterson, pinch-faced and sharp-voiced, made a comment about poor orphans loud enough for everyone to hear. Ruth stopped dead, turned around, and said in a voice that could freeze fire, "That's my daughter. You're talking about Martha, and she's not poor at all. She's the richest girl in Cedar Springs because she knows what real family looks like. Do you—" Mrs. Patterson's face went red. She sputtered something and hurried away. James squeezed Ruth's shoulder, pride evident in his face. "Didn't know you had that in you," he murmured. "Mess with my kid, you'll find out what I have in me." My kid. Mercy's throat went tight. Ruth had said it so casually, like it was simple fact instead of earth-shaken declaration. After church, other children approached cautiously. A girl named Sarah, about Mercy's age, offered a shy smile. "Want to come play at the creek next Saturday? A bunch of us go." Mercy glanced at Ruth, who nodded encouragement. "Okay." "Good. Bring cookies if your ma bakes any. She makes the best cookies." Your ma. As if it was settled. As if Mercy belonged. Maybe she did. The summer passed in a blur of learning and growing and slowly, carefully letting herself believe. Mercy learned to read full sentences, then paragraphs, then whole pages. She devoured every book the Hendersons owned, then borrowed more from neighbors. Words opened worlds she never knew existed. She made friends. Sarah became her constant companion along with two boys, Daniel and Thomas, though everyone called him Tommy. They explored the creek, built forts, told stories, and included Mercy like she'd always been there. She grew stronger, healthier. Her hair grew longer. Ruth taught her to braid it, not the Comanche way, but close enough that Mercy didn't feel like she was losing that part of herself. And slowly she stopped flinching when James reached out to ruffle her hair. Stopped hoarding food, stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. In October, James brought papers home from town, legal adoption papers. "You don't have to decide now," he said, setting them on the table. "But they're here when you're ready. If you want to be Mercy Henderson for real, the law will allow it now that your mother's formally given up rights." Mercy stared at the papers. Black ink on white paper. Official seals. Spaces for signatures that would change everything or nothing depending on how she looked at it. "What if I'm not ready yet?" "Then we wait," Ruth said simply. "We've got time." But that night, lying in bed, Mercy pulled out both wooden birds. The one from her father, her first father, who'd loved her before the world got complicated. And the one from Swift Arrow, who'd saved her when the world tried to kill her. She'd been so afraid of choosing, afraid that loving the Hendersons meant betraying the Comanche, afraid that accepting this new life meant forgetting the old one. But Ruth was right. Love wasn't limited. She could carry all of it, all the people who'd seen her, chosen her, fought for her. They all lived in her heart, and there was room for more. She got out of bed, padded to the kitchen where she knew James and Ruth would still be awake. They looked up when she entered, concern immediate on their faces. "Mercy, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She held out both birds. "These are from my father's. My first father made this one. Swift Arrow made this one. They both loved me. They both wanted me to remember I was worth something." She took a breath. I think I have room for more fathers and mothers, if you still want me." Ruth's face crumpled. She pulled Mercy into a hug so tight it almost hurt. "Oh, sweetheart, of course we still want you. We'll always want you." James wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood there in the kitchen, three people who'd found each other against all odds, making something that looked like family. "Tomorrow," Mercy said into Ruth's shoulder. "We can sign the papers tomorrow." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. I want to be Mercy Henderson, but—" She pulled back to look at them both. "Can my middle name be Little Bird to remember? Little Bird Henderson." James tested it out. "I like it. Has a ring to it." Ruth laughed through tears. "Then that's what it'll be." The next day, they signed the papers in front of a judge in town. It took 10 minutes. James signed. Ruth signed. Mercy signed, her handwriting still shaky but readable. The judge stamped everything with his seal and declared, "Congratulations, you're officially a family," as if they hadn't been all along. Walking out of the courthouse, Mercy felt different, lighter. Like she'd been carrying something heavy for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to set it down. "Ice cream," James suggested. "Seems like an ice cream kind of day." "Definitely ice cream," Ruth agreed. They walked to the general store, which had a small ice cream counter in back. Mercy had never had ice cream before. It was cold and sweet and melted on her tongue, and she decided right then it was the best thing she'd ever tasted. "Good?" Ruth asked. "Amazing." "Wait till you try Ruth's apple pie," James said. "Ice cream's got nothing on that." "Is that a challenge, James Henderson?" "Might be." They bickered playfully while Mercy ate her ice cream and watched the people of Cedar Springs go about their lives. Some nodded to them. Some smiled. Mrs. Patterson crossed the street to avoid them, which made Mercy smile. She belonged here. It wasn't where she started, and it wasn't where she'd been happiest, but it was where she was. And that was enough. That night, Mercy wrote her first letter. Ruth had been teaching her writing along with reading, and while her letters were crooked and some words were spelled wrong, it was readable. "Dear Swift Arrow," she wrote, "I don't know if this letter will reach you, but I wanted you to know I'm okay. The Hendersons adopted me. I'm Mercy Henderson now, but my middle name is Little Bird, so I carry you with me. I'm learning to read and write. I'm learning to be a daughter again. It's hard sometimes, but I'm doing it. I hope you're well. I hope Running Deer is growing strong. I hope Bright Moon is still singing while she cooks. I hope everyone is safe and happy. I will come back someday. I promised, and I keep my promises. But for now, I'm learning to belong here. Thank you for teaching me I could. Always Mercy Little Bird. Henderson." She gave the letter to Captain Morrison the next time he came through town. He promised to get it to the Comanche if he could, though he couldn't guarantee anything. "They move with the seasons," he said, "but I'll try." "Thank you." Morrison studied her face. "You look good, Miss Henderson. Happy." "I am happy." And, saying it, Mercy realized it was true. Not the wild, fierce happiness of the Comanche camp, but something quieter, steadier. The happiness of knowing she was home. Months passed. Winter came harsh and cold. The Hendersons' house stayed warm, the fire always burning the kitchen, always smelling like something good cooking. Mercy learned to knit from Ruth, made a lumpy scarf she was nonetheless proud of. James taught her to ice skate on the frozen creek, catching her every time she fell. She celebrated her first real Christmas. A tree in the corner decorated with strings of berries and paper stars she'd made herself. Presents nothing fancy, just practical things but wrapped with care. A new dress from Ruth Blue with white buttons. A knife from James, smaller than Iron Bear's, but perfectly balanced. And books, so many books. "You're going to read us into the poorhouse," James joked, but his eyes were warm. "Worth it," Ruth declared. That night, lying in bed surrounded by her gifts, Mercy felt something she'd almost forgotten: contentment. Not the desperate happiness of someone grateful just to survive, but the deep, abiding peace of someone who knew they were exactly where they belonged. She pulled out the wooden birds her collection had grown to include a carved horse James had made her for Christmas, and lined them up on her windowsill. Different hands, different times, different kinds of love. But all saying the same thing: you matter, you belong, you are chosen. And finally, Mercy believed it. Spring brought new life to Cedar Springs. Flowers bloomed. Calves were born. The creek ran high with snow melt. And one warm April morning, a rider appeared on the horizon, heading toward town. Mercy was in the garden helping Ruth plant seeds when she heard the horse. Something made her look up. Something made her drop the trowel and stand. The rider was Comanche. She knew it instantly, the way he sat the horse, the long black hair, the buckskin clothing. Her heart started racing. As he drew closer, she saw his face, recognized him. "Swift Arrow," she breathed. Then she was running, her feet flying across the ground, her heart in her throat. He dismounted before she reached him, and she slammed into him with enough force to stagger them both. His arms came around her, solid and real. "Little Bird," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You kept your promise." "No," she said into his chest. "You kept yours. You said you'd always be with me, and you were." He pulled back to look at her, taking in the dress, the braided hair, the way she'd grown in the months since he'd seen her last. "You look well." "I am well. I'm happy." She grabbed his hand. "Come meet them. Come meet my family." She dragged him toward the house where Ruth and James had emerged, clearly alarmed by the sight of their daughter embracing a Comanche warrior. But when they saw Mercy's face, the pure joy there, they relaxed. "James, Ruth, this is Swift Arrow. He's the one who found me, who saved me." Swift Arrow looked at the Hendersons, his face serious. He spoke in careful English. "I came to see she is well, to see you keep her safe." "We do," James said firmly. "And we will. You have my word. And to give you this." Swift Arrow pulled something from his pack, a beautiful buffalo hide, tanned soft and painted with intricate designs. "From Bright Moon. She says welcome to the family little bird. These are the symbols of protection and love." Mercy traced the designs with shaking fingers. "Is everyone... are they all okay?" "All well. Running deer walks now. White Dove says he asks for you." Swift Arrow smiled slightly. "She says his first word was your name. Well, the name we call you." Ruth stepped forward. "Would you like to stay for dinner? It's the least we can do." Swift Arrow looked surprised, then honored. "Yes, thank you." That evening, they sat around the Henderson table, white family and Comanche warrior sharing food and stories and the common ground of loving one girl enough to fight for her. Swift Arrow told them about the camp, about life on the plains. The Hendersons told him about Mercy's progress, her reading her friends. "She is happy here," Swift Arrow said. It wasn't a question. "She is," Ruth confirmed. "Good. This is what we wanted. For her to be chosen, to be loved." He looked at Mercy. "You found your place, little bird." "I found both my places," Mercy corrected. "I'm allowed to love both. Someone very wise told me that." As the sun set, Swift Arrow prepared to leave. He had a long ride back to his people. But before he mounted, he knelt and took Mercy's hands. "You walk in two worlds now. This is not a curse. This is a gift. You will always have a home with us, and you have a home here. Carry both. Be proud of both." "I will," Mercy promised. "Tell Bright Moon I love her. Tell everyone, tell them I haven't forgotten. They know, they feel it." He touched her heart lightly. "Here, always." He mounted his horse and rode away, disappearing into the twilight. Mercy stood watching long after he'd vanished, Ruth and James on either side of her. "You okay?" James asked quietly. "Yeah." She leaned against him. "I'm really okay." And she was. Because she'd learned the hardest truth of all, that being chosen didn't mean choosing only one thing. That love could stretch across worlds, across cultures, across everything that tried to divide. She was Mercy Whitman, daughter of a man who'd carved her a bird and died too young. She was Little Bird, chosen daughter of a Comanche camp that taught her she was sacred. And she was Mercy Henderson, beloved child of two people who'd waited their whole lives for her. She was all of it, all at once. And that was exactly who she was supposed to be. The years that followed Swift Arrow's visit moved like a river, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always forward. Mercy grew from a girl into a young woman, her body changing in ways that both thrilled and terrified her. Ruth explained everything with patience and honesty. treating her daughter's questions as natural instead of shameful. James built her a desk for her room when her collection of books outgrew the small shelf, and he never once complained about the lamp oil she burned reading late into the night. By the time Mercy turned 16, she'd read every book in Cedar Springs twice and started ordering more from catalogs. She devoured everything: novels, histories, medical texts, agricultural journals. Ruth joked that they'd have to add a room just for her library. "What are you going to do with all that learning?" Mrs. Patterson asked one Sunday after church, her voice dripping with disapproval. "No man wants a wife smarter than him." "Then I guess I'll find a smart man," Mercy replied evenly. "Or not find one at all. I'm fine either way." Mrs. Patterson's face pinched like she'd bitten into something sour. Ruth squeezed Mercy's arm as they walked away, pride evident in her smile. "That's my girl." But despite the books and the learning and the life she'd built in Cedar Springs, part of Mercy never stopped looking toward the horizon. Every spring she hoped Swift Arrow would appear again. Every autumn she wondered where the Comanche were, if they were safe, if they remembered her. She wrote letters she couldn't send, filling pages with thoughts and memories and everything she wished she could say. She kept them in a wooden box under her bed, along with the wooden birds and the medicine pouch and the feather that was starting to show its age. "You ever think about going back?" Sarah asked one afternoon as they sat by the creek, their feet dangling in the cool water. Sarah was 17 now, engaged to Daniel, already planning a future that included a house and babies, and staying right here in Cedar Springs forever. "Every day," Mercy admitted. "So why don't you—" "Because I love Ruth and James, because I have a life here, because—" She paused, trying to articulate something she barely understood herself. "Because I'm afraid if I go back I won't want to leave again, and that would kill Ruth. Or maybe," Sarah said slowly, "you're afraid you won't fit there anymore either, that you've changed too much." The words hit too close to truth. Mercy had been 9 when Swift Arrow found her small and desperate and clinging to any kindness shown. Now she was 16, educated, wearing calico dresses and sleeping in a real bed. Would the Comanche even recognize her? Would they see Little Bird, or would they see just another white woman playing at being something she wasn't? "Maybe," Mercy said quietly. That night at dinner, James set down his fork and cleared his own chacha in his throat in the way that meant he had something important to say. "I've been thinking," he started. "You're 16 now, almost 17, old enough to make your own choices." Mercy's heart started beating faster. "What kind of choices?" "About your future, about where you want to be." He glanced at Ruth, who nodded encouragement. "If you wanted to go find the Comanche, spend time with them again, we wouldn't stop you." "You wouldn't, honey?" "We always knew this day might come," Ruth said gently. "We've seen how you look west when you think no one's watching. We've heard you talking in your sleep in words we don't understand. Part of you never left that camp. But part of me is here too, with you. I don't want to hurt you." James reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was calloused from work, warm and solid and completely familiar. "You've never hurt us, Mercy, not once. You've been nothing but a blessing. But we don't own you. Love doesn't work that way." "What your father's trying to say," Ruth added, her voice thick with emotion, "is that we love you enough to let you go, if that's what you need, and we'll be right here when you come back, if you come back." "Of course I'd come back." "Would you?" Ruth asked, not unkindly. Because it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you find out you belong somewhere else. We just want you to be happy wherever that is." Mercy felt tears burning behind her eyes. "How are you so good? How are you so okay with this?" "Because we've had 7 years with you," James said simply. 7 years of watching you grow and learn and become this incredible young woman. That's more than we ever thought we'd get. If that's all we get, it's enough." "But what if I leave? And you? What if something happens and I'm not here and then we'll have died knowing our daughter was out living her life instead of sitting beside our deathbeds out of obligation." Ruth stood and came around the table, pulling Mercy into a hug. "Baby girl, listen to me. You don't owe us your whole life because we took you in. You don't owe us anything except honesty. So, be honest, what do you want?" Mercy buried her face in Ruth's shoulder and admitted the truth she'd been carrying for years. "I want to see them again. I want to know if I still fit there. I want to understand who I am when I'm in both places." "Then do it," Ruth whispered. "Go find out." Planning took 2 months. Captain Morrison, now Major Morrison, and stationed at Fort Worth, helped Mercy locate the Comanche band. They were camped near the Red River for the summer, about a week's ride north. He arranged for a guide, a mixed-blood translator named Ben, who'd lived in both worlds and understood the complexity of Mercy's situation. "You sure about this?" Ben asked as they prepared to leave. He was maybe 30, with dark eyes that saw too much and a quiet way of moving that reminded Mercy of Swift Arrow. "It's been 7 years. People change. Camps change. You might not find what you're looking for." "I know, but I have to try." The morning they left, half of Cedar Springs came to see them off. Sarah cried and made Mercy promise to write. Daniel shook her hand solemnly and told her to be careful. Even Mrs. Patterson showed up, though she only sniffed and muttered something about foolishness. Ruth packed enough food for 3 weeks, her hands shaking slightly as she tucked biscuits and dried meat into saddlebags. "You have your medicine pouch, the one Bright Moon gave you. I have it. And you'll be careful. You'll listen to Ben. I promise." James stood holding the reins of Mercy's horse, his face stoic, but his eyes suspiciously bright. "You ride safe. You be smart. And you come home when you're ready. Not when you think you should, but when you're actually ready. Understand?" "I understand." He pulled her into a hug that squeezed the air from her lungs. "I'm proud of you, daughter. So damn proud." "Language, James," Ruth scolded automatically, but she was crying too hard for it to have any force. Mercy hugged them both, committing to memory the smell of Ruth's lavender soap and the scratch of James's beard and the way they held her like she was something precious. Then she mounted her horse, settled her bag across her shoulders, and nodded to Ben. "Let's go." Riding out of Cedar Springs felt like leaving her own skin behind. She kept looking back until the town disappeared over the horizon, until there was nothing but prairie and sky and the uncertain future ahead. "You okay?" Ben asked. "Ask me when we get there." They rode for 6 days through country that felt both familiar and foreign. Mercy had crossed this land once before, dying, and desperate too, focused on survival to notice the beauty. Now she saw it the way the grass rippled like water in the wind, the endless sky that made her feel simultaneously insignificant and infinite, the hawks circling overhead on invisible currents. On the 7th day, Ben reined in his horse and pointed. "There." In the distance, Mercy saw tipis. Her heart started racing. That's them. That's them. You ready? No. Yes. She didn't know. Let's find out. As they approached, sentries spotted them. Mercy heard shouts, saw movement. Warriors mounted horses and rode out to meet them. She searched their faces desperately, looking for Swift Arrow, for anyone she recognized. Then she saw him. Older now, with a scar running along his jawline that hadn't been there before, but unmistakably Swift Arrow. Their eyes met across the distance, and his face transformed with recognition. He said something sharp in Comanche. The other warriors lowered their weapons. He kicked his horse into a gallop, closing the distance between them in seconds. "Little bird," his voice was incredulous. "Is it really you?" Mercy's throat was too tight to speak. She nodded. Swift Arrow dismounted and pulled her down from her horse, spinning her in a circle like she weighed nothing. "You came back. I didn't think. We thought you might forget us." "Never," Mercy managed. "I could never forget." He set her down, his hands on her shoulders, studying her face. "You look so different, so grown." "So do you. What happened?" She touched the scar lightly. "A story for later. Come, Bright Moon will want to see you. Everyone will want to see you." He practically dragged her toward camp, calling out in rapid Comanche. People emerged from teepees, children ran over, and suddenly Mercy was surrounded by faces both strange and achingly familiar. Then an older woman pushed through the crowd, moving surprisingly fast for someone who had to be pushing 70. Bright Moon looked at Mercy, her weathered face crinkling into the widest smile. "Little bird," she breathed, "you came home." "I came to visit," Mercy corrected, but Bright Moon was already pulling her into a hug that smelled like sage and smoke and everything Mercy had missed. Visit live doesn't matter. You're here. That's what matters. White Dove appeared next, older, but still recognizable, with a little girl of about 4 clinging to her dress and a baby in her arms. "Mercy, oh running deer, we'll be so happy. Running deer, come here." A boy of about 8 or 9 pushed through the crowd. He had his mother's eyes and his father's serious expression. He looked at Mercy with open curiosity. "This is the little bird you tell me about?" He asked his mother in English that was surprisingly good. "This is her." Running Deer studied Mercy for a long moment, then announced, "You're taller than I thought you'd be." Mercy laughed, surprising herself. "You're bigger than I thought you'd be. I'm going to be a great warrior like Swift Arrow." "I believe it." The camp welcomed her like she'd never left. They set up a teepee for her, your tippy, Bright Moon insisted. "We kept space for it all these years." And that night they held a feast. People brought food, asked questions, told her stories of everything that had happened in the 7 years since she'd left. There had been battles, deaths, births, marriages. Life had continued as it always did in her absence, but they'd remembered her, told her story, kept her place warm. "Why?" Mercy asked Bright Moon late that night as they sat by the fire. "Why keep space for me? You had no reason to think I'd come back." Bright Moon stirred the coals with a long stick. "Because hope costs nothing and means everything. Because you were ours and we don't forget our children, and because—" She looked at Mercy with eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. "I knew you would come back. Maybe not today, maybe not for many years, but eventually. You had unfinished business here." "What business?" "Figuring out where you belong." Over the next weeks, Mercy fell back into the rhythm of camp life easier than she expected. Her hands remembered how to tan, hides how to start a fire, how to track game. Her body remembered how to move through the landscape quietly, how to read signs in the dirt, how to exist as part of nature instead of separate from it. But things were different too. She was different. She corrected herself when she started to speak Comanche, the words coming slower than they used to. She missed her books. She caught herself thinking in English more often than not. And when the children asked her to tell stories, she found herself telling them about Cedar Springs as much as anything else. Swift Arrow noticed. Of course he did. He sat beside her one evening as she watched the sunset, her mind clearly elsewhere. "You're unhappy," he said bluntly. "I'm not unhappy, I'm just confused. About where I fit. When I'm in Cedar Springs, I miss here. When I'm here, I miss there. I thought coming back would answer questions, but it's just making them worse." Swift Arrow was quiet for a moment. "You remember what I told you before about walking in two worlds? You said it was a gift. It is, but gifts can be heavy. You're trying to be fully in both places, and that's impossible. You can't be fully anything when you're divided. So what do I do? Stop trying to choose. Accept that you're both. Accept that some days you'll miss one place and some days the other. Accept that belonging doesn't mean being in one place forever. It means carrying both places in your heart wherever you go. That sounds lonely. Or it sounds free." He looked at her. "Little bird, you were never meant to stay in one nest. That's why we gave you that name. Birds fly. It's what they do." The words settled into her chest like stones, or maybe like wings. She wasn't sure which. 2 months into her visit, runners brought news soldiers were coming. Not with hostile intent, Major Morrison was leading them apparently on official business. But everyone went on alert anyway. 7 years hadn't erased the memories of past betrayals, past massacres, past promises broken. Morrison rode in with a small escort, his face serious but not threatening. He dismounted and greeted Iron Bear formally, then his eyes found Mercy. "Miss Henderson, glad to see you made it here safely." "Major Morrison, what brings you?" "2 things. First, official business, making sure this camp knows about the new treaty boundaries. Second," he pulled a letter from his coat. "This came for you. From Cedar Springs." Mercy's heart lurched. She took the letter with shaken hands, Ruth's handwriting. She broke the seal and read, "Dearest Mercy, I hope this finds you well and happy. James and I think of you every day. The garden's doing well, those tomatoes you planted before you left are coming in beautifully. Sarah got married last week. It was lovely. She cried because you weren't there, but she understood. I'm writing because I wanted you to know whatever you decide, wherever you choose to be, we support you. If you want to stay with the Comanche, we'll understand. If you want to come home, we'll be waiting. And if you want to do something else entirely, something we haven't thought of, we'll support that too. You don't have to choose between your worlds, sweetheart. You're allowed to love both. You're allowed to build a life that includes both. You're allowed to forge your own path. We love you, not because you're ours, but because you're you. And you is exactly who you're supposed to be. All our love. Ma and Pa." Mercy read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Swift Arrow appeared at her shoulder. "Bad news?" "No, good news, the best news." She looked up at him. "They're giving me permission to be free. You already had that permission. You just needed to believe it. And standing there, letter in hand, surrounded by people who'd chosen her in two different ways, Mercy finally understood. She didn't have to choose. She didn't have to fit perfectly in one world or the other. She could be the bridge between them. She could carry both honor, both love, both. She could be exactly who she was. Mercy Little Bird Henderson, daughter of 3 fathers and 2 mothers belonging to 2 peoples and beholden to none. She could spend summers with the Comanche and winters in Cedar Springs. She could teach Comanche children to read and white children about the people they feared. She could translate not just languages but understanding, building connections where others saw only division. She could be free. "I need to write a letter," she told Morrison. "Can you take it back?" "Of course." That night, Mercy sat in her teepee and wrote by lamplight. "Dear Ma and Pa, thank you for understanding what I couldn't understand myself. Thank you for loving me enough to let me be complicated. I'm coming home. But I'll be coming back here too. I'm going to build a life that includes both of you, both families, both worlds. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm not choosing, I'm claiming. All of it, all of me. I love you both more than words can say. I'll be home before winter. Your daughter, Mercy." She stayed with the Comanche until autumn painted the leaves gold and red. She learned everything Bright Moon could teach her about healing. She rode with Swift Arrow and learned tracking at a level she'd never managed as a child. She told stories to running deer in his generation, making sure they knew that not all white people were enemies, just as she'd make sure white children knew the same about the Comanche. When it was time to leave, the goodbyes were easier than before, because this wasn't an ending. It was just a pause. "You'll come back in the spring?" White Dove asked. "I'll come back in the spring," Mercy promised. "Good. Running Deer is already planning what to teach you." Swift Arrow walked her to the edge of camp where Ben waited with the horses. "You found your answer then." "I found my answer. It was there all along. I just had to stop being afraid of it." "You were never very good at being afraid anyway," he smiled. "Go, little bird. Fly between your worlds, but always remember you have a nest here whenever you need it." "I know. Thank you. For everything. For finding me. For saving me. For teaching me I could save myself. You did that part on your own." She hugged him one last time, then mounted her horse. As she rode away, the camp sang her farewell song voices carrying on the wind. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She'd be back. The ride to Cedar Springs felt shorter than the ride away. Or maybe Mercy was just eager now, knowing what waited. Ben left her at the town's edge with a smile and a wave, his job done. Mercy rode in as the sun set, painting everything gold. People stopped to stare, then to wave. Sarah ran out of her house now shared with Daniel, and screamed with joy. Word spread fast. By the time Mercy reached the Henderson house, a small crowd had gathered. Then the door opened. Ruth stood there, one hand over her mouth, tears already streaming. James appeared behind her, his face split with the widest smile. Mercy dismounted and ran. Ruth met her halfway, pulling her daughter into an embrace that felt like coming home. "You came back," Ruth sobbed. "I told you I would. I'll always come back. This is home." "But so is there," James said, joining the embrace, "and that's okay. That's good even." "I'm going to go back and forth," Mercy said into their shoulders. Build a life that includes both. Is that okay?" "It's more than okay," Ruth said. "It's perfect. You're perfect, exactly as you are." They stood there in the middle of Main Street, three people who'd found each other against impossible odds, holding tight to love that was bigger than blood, stronger than law, more enduring than any distance. That night, the Hendersons threw a welcome home party. The house filled with neighbors and friends, all eager to hear about Mercy's adventures. She told them stories, answered questions, and watched understanding dawn on faces that had only known fear. Later, when everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, Mercy sat at her desk and pulled out all her wooden birds. The one from her father, the one from Swift Arrow, the horse from James. A new one, Bright Moon, had carved her an eagle during her visit. She lined them up on her windowsill facing both east and west. Different hands, different meanings, all saying the same thing: you are loved, you are chosen, you belong. But the truth was even simpler than that. She didn't need anyone else to tell her those things anymore. She knew them herself. She was Mercy Little Bird Henderson, daughter of the prairie and the settlement of the Comanche and the whites of everyone who'd chosen her and everyone she'd chosen in return. She'd been left to die beside a creek and had walked herself back to life. She'd been saved by people her own kind called savages, and welcomed by people who had every reason to reject her. She'd learned that family wasn't blood. It was choice. And love wasn't about holding tight. It was about giving people room to be exactly who they were. She'd learned that belonging wasn't about fitting perfectly into one space. It was about having the courage to carry multiple spaces in your heart and build a life big enough to hold them all. She'd learned that the girl left behind wasn't abandoned. She was freed. Freed to become someone bigger than anyone's expectations, braver than anyone's fears, more whole than anyone's understanding. And standing at her window, looking out at stars that shone over both her homes. Mercy understood the final truth: she wasn't caught between two worlds. She was the bridge connecting them, and that wasn't a burden. It was exactly who she was meant to be. The little girl left to die had become a woman who chose life, all of it. The messy complexity and the impossible beauty, and that choice made all the difference.